Lyrana stood at the crystalline window of her tower chamber, watching the last of her suitors depart through the palace gates. The Alteran noble had lasted barely 3 days before the whispered rumors reached his ears. Like all the others before him, he had found some convenient excuse to withdraw his proposal once he learned the truth about her condition. The elven princess touched her flat abdomen through the flowing silk of her gown. The court physicians had delivered their verdict 5 cycles ago. She would never bear children. In their society, where bloodlines determined everything and heirs secured dynasties, a barren princess was worth less than a common servant. Her father, King Thalon, had grown increasingly desperate with each failed courtship, knowing that, without a strategic marriage, their kingdom's alliances would crumble. Below in the courtyard, human soldiers from the Terran Alliance were setting up their temporary barracks. They had arrived 3 weeks ago as part of a military exchange program, bringing their strange customs and peculiar sense of humor. Unlike the other species that visited their world, the humans seemed remarkably unconcerned with traditional hierarchies and bloodline politics. Captain Marcus Thompson emerged from one of the tents, his dark hair catching the afternoon sunlight. Lyrana had noticed him during the formal introductions, not for his rank or bearing, but for the way he had looked at her. There had been no calculation in his gaze, no assessment of her political value. He had simply smiled and treated her as he would any other person. The sound of approaching footsteps made her turn from the window. Her lady-in-waiting, Elena, entered with downcast eyes. "Your Highness, your father requests your presence in the throne room," Elena said softly. "Another delegation has arrived from the draconic sovereignty." Lyrana's heart sank. The dragonkin were notoriously pragmatic in their marriage arrangements, viewing unions purely as business transactions. If her father was entertaining their proposals, his desperation had reached new depths. She made her way through the palace corridors, her silk slippers silent on the polished stone floors. Outside the throne room, she paused to compose herself, then pushed open the heavy doors. King Thalon sat rigidly on his throne, his weathered face betraying the stress of recent months. Before him stood 3 dragonkin diplomats, their scaled skin gleaming with an oily iridescence. The largest of them, Ambassador Krex, was speaking in his rumbling voice about trade agreements and territorial concessions. "The arrangement would be most beneficial," Krex was saying. "My nephew Cyrex is willing to overlook certain deficiencies in exchange for preferential mining rights to your northern provinces." Lyrana's cheeks burned with humiliation. Even the dragonkin spoke of her as damaged goods, something to be tolerated rather than desired. "Father," she interrupted, surprising everyone in the room, "may I speak with you privately?" The king's eyes flashed with irritation, but he dismissed the dragonkin delegation with promises to consider their proposal. When they were alone, Lyrana approached the throne. "I cannot continue this charade," she said quietly. "Each suitor comes seeking political advantage, only to retreat when they learn of my condition. I would rather remain unwed than become a burden traded for mining rights." King Thalon descended from his throne, his expression softening slightly. "My dear daughter, you know I have no choice. Without a strong marriage alliance, our kingdom faces isolation. The other species see weakness in a ruler whose bloodline may end with him. Then perhaps it is time to consider alternatives," Lyrana replied. "The humans seem less concerned with such traditions." The king frowned. "The humans are military allies, nothing more. They have no noble houses, no hereditary titles of significance. A marriage to one of them would bring us no political benefit." "But it might bring happiness," Lyrana said boldly. "Is that worth nothing?" Before her father could respond, a commotion erupted outside the throne room. The doors burst open, and Captain Thompson strode in, flanked by 2 nervous palace guards. "Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion," Marcus said, offering a crisp military salute. "I understand there may be some misunderstanding about your daughter's situation." King Thalon's eyes narrowed. "Captain, this is not your concern." "With respect, sir, I believe it is," Marcus replied. "I've heard the rumors circulating about Princess Lyrana. In human culture, we have a saying, the measure of a person isn't in what they can give, but in who they choose to be. Laurana stared at the human soldier, her heart racing. No one had ever spoken about her with such directness and dignity. "Your princess is intelligent, compassionate, and strong," Marcus continued. "She speaks 4 languages, mediates disputes, with wisdom beyond her years, and shows genuine concern for her people's welfare. In my world, those qualities matter far more than biological functions." The king's face reddened. "Captain Thompson, you forget yourself. Royal marriages are matters of state, not personal sentiment." "Then perhaps it's time for a new perspective," Marcus said firmly. "Humans have learned that strength comes from unity, not just bloodlines. We build alliances through trust and mutual respect, not arranged marriages between strangers." He turned to Laurana, his brown eyes serious. "Your Highness, I know we've only spoken briefly, but I would be honored if you would consider me as a potential husband. Not for political gain or dynastic purposes, but because I believe we could build something meaningful together." The throne room fell silent. Laurana felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Here was a man offering marriage not despite her condition, but seemingly unconcerned by it entirely. "You would truly want a barren wife?" she asked, quietly. Marcus smiled. "I want a partner who challenges me, supports our people, and faces the future with courage. Children are a blessing if they come, but they're not the foundation of love or respect." King Thalon looked between his daughter and the human captain, clearly struggling with the implications. A marriage to a human officer would bring military alliance, but no hereditary advantage. Yet the alternative seemed to be continued humiliation and eventual isolation. "This is most irregular," the king said finally. "The best solutions often are," Laurana replied, taking a step toward Marcus. "Captain Thompson, I accept your proposal." The decision sent shockwaves through the palace and beyond. The Dragonkin delegation departed in fury, while other species watched with fascination as the Elven Kingdom allied itself more closely with the unpredictable humans. 6 months later, as Princess Laurana and Captain Marcus Thompson exchanged vows in a ceremony that blended Elven tradition with human customs, the kingdom discovered something remarkable. Their new alliance brought not just military strength, but technological advancement, cultural exchange, and a fresh perspective on leadership. Laurana had found not just a husband, but a partner who valued her for herself, and in doing so, she had helped her people discover that sometimes the greatest strength comes from choosing love over convention, hope over despair, and courage over fear. The humans, it seemed, had taught them that the future belonged not to those who clung to old ways, but to those brave enough to forge new ones.